Hello, everyone. Good morning to one and all. On behalf of the Creator team, I welcome you all for the Creator Community Learning Webinar Series. So, my name is Sriram, and I'm going to be your host today. And in this webinar series, we're going to be looking into the new capabilities that we have introduced in Zoho Creator with respect to Java functions. So, let's get to the session. And before we get started, all the attendees will be placed on mute today in this webinar series. And the tool that we are using to host this webinar is Zoho Showtime. And you will find a questions panel on the left where you can post your questions that you may have with respect to this session from time to time. And the co-trainers who we have among us will be addressing those questions. And also at the end of the session, there is a dedicated question and answers time as well. And we will also address some of the questions at that time. And by default, the recording of this session will also be sent to all the registered attendees. And you will also be receiving a post-session survey. And we kindly request everyone to participate in that and provide your feedback so that it'll help us in our future webinar sessions. So in this webinar, we are going to be looking into some new languages which we have introduced on Zoho Creator and what they are. And we will also be looking into some advantages of cloud functions. And we will also have a use case demonstration where we will be utilizing the language of Java, and we have a pre-built function existing in a sample application we have created, which is for the inventory management application. And we will use that for the demonstration purposes. So we will explain that in detail about that demonstration as we reach that section of this webinar. And we will also be sharing some points to remember, which will help you in order for you to start your journey with the cloud functions in Creator, and also some more examples which are possibilities that you can achieve by using cloud functions. So let's get to it. So when we look into the anatomy of any application, right, it will have two areas. One will be the backend, which will be the processing engine of the application. And the other will be the front end, which is where the user will interact with the actual app. So as most of you already know, the backend essentials to building an application will be with the modeling of the data, or the data flow of the data, the authorization, how that needs to work, and of course workflows which will aid the flow of data in your application, right? And the front end will obviously consist of forms, report, or pages, which is going to have them visually displayed for the end user on your application. So Creator does meet the requirements of the essentials we saw a little while back with the data modeler automatically be available. So when you create your forms and when you create relationships using lookup fields, automatically it creates a data model in the backend. And you also have a permissions module, which we can use to decide who needs to access which component and what level of access they need to have on those components. And the workflow creator, which is what is powering the automation and several other processes in the backend of your application. And in the front end, it has the form and the report and the page component creators, which I'm sure that you all would have already utilized very much. So the languages that Zoho Creator had been using till now is the Deluge in the backend, which is Zoho's proprietary language. And it can be used to perform various computing and processes at various events while the application is being used both in the front end and also in the backend. So in the client interface of the application, which is the front end, now users will be able to write code in HTML and XML in the pages component, and also will be able to use Deluge in that same process. So Creator has been using Deluge in the backend for a very long time until recently. So we are introducing more languages in these areas now. And let's take a look into the languages that we have added in the backend. So you will now be able to write code in Java and Node.js and trigger it from various events in the application. So we call this as cloud functions. right? And Zoho Creator being a product as a service on the cloud, these new functions in the Java and Node.js, which we are bringing in, they do not require any infrastructure of its own. So the users can directly start writing code in these languages as functions, which is what will be available in Creator, and control the backend flow of the application, and also thereby extend the capabilities of the application as well. So let's look into some benefits of cloud functions. So with the capabilities now extending to these other languages, you will be able to add even more power to your code, right? And since these languages are going to be supported as functions in Creator, you can also easily scale and extend the capabilities to any extent, any level. And all these server management will be completely taken care of by the service, its Creator. And you can also have your Creator application to in fact integrate with your local systems using Java and the other languages that we are bringing in. And the obvious benefit of having these as a function is that the code can be reused across application in your Creator account. So let's also take a look into what the cloud functions in Creator does offer. So Creator now gets the ability to support these multiple languages we have brought in, the Java and Node.js. So more languages will also be added to the list. We are working towards that. So you will see more languages being added into this list as well. So it's not the end of cloud functions, only these two languages. We will bring in more languages soon. And we will also be providing support to code and test run your code before you can publish this on your live environment or into your production application, right? So it's not that you need to code or write your code in an external tool or any other IDE, and then you need to just bring in the code into Creator alone. No, we provide the support for you to code and also test the code within Creator itself, the place where you're writing it as a function, before you can actually push it to your live application usage. And also any dependent files can also be uploaded. So we are supporting upload of dependent files too. So for example, in Java, the jars files can be uploaded and its respective methods can be utilized within the functions that we are writing the code on. And these functions from other languages can be like any other deluge function, which is what we will be creating. And that means that it can be called from any different events, like the onload of a form, on user input of a field, or on successful submission of a form event. So any workplace, the workflow instance, you will be able to call these functions from. And why these languages first is because these are popular languages that are common among developers, and they already have a huge user base and a mature community as well. Say, for instance, over 400,000 projects have been uploaded in the online repositories like GitHub, right? So by various developers just for Java alone, right? So a large number of readily available solutions and packages are existing in such repositories, which can be used directly in the application with just a little modification that you need to do with respect to, so that it can adjust itself within the Creator application where it's being utilized, right? So readily available solutions and frameworks are existing in such popular repositories on the internet. So Java. So today we will be looking into the cloud functions and how we can create a function by using the Java language. So what is Java? So Java is a write once, run anywhere programming languages. That was the original tagline that was came with when it was initially introduced by Sun Microsystems. And it is an object-oriented, class-based, and high-level computer programming language, and it has a robust technology as well. So some of the advantages, if we look into, of using the Java as a programming language, it is platform independent language, and it has a rich standard library, making it easy to code. And Java supports automatic memory allocation and deallocation, which means we call the garbage collection. And also it offers you great performance, making it a highly interactive and a responsive language as well. And the safety features, are also built into the language and runtime systems by default. So these include the runtime checking and the static type checking at compile time too. So hence highly secure, and ease of reading and writing will definitely make any language to be learned simply. So this holds true for Java as well, because it has a less ambiguous syntax terminology. So anyone can actually start right off with Java with an understanding of the basic underlying principles of programming. So hence it's also simple to learn. So now let's look into the Java capabilities within Creator, and to begin with the builder. So here we have a screen capture of the function builder in Creator, which I will also be showcasing shortly. And we can see that the language has been chosen as Java. So this is exactly the same location where you may also be able to choose Node.js, right? So in this session, we will be looking into the Java as a cloud function. In future webinar series, we might include the Node.js as well. So the namespace for the Java function will always be the default namespace. So those who have experience creating functions in Deluge on Zoho Creator would be aware of what the namespace is. It's just kind of a folder that you can place and categorize your functions performing a similar operations. But however, for these cloud functions, it will always be the default namespace. And the return type of a Java function, Java Cloud Function, will always and only be of a collection data type. And the arguments, the Java functions accept only string values as arguments. So when you pass any arguments to your function, you need to pass it as the string data type. And arguments are nothing but values which would be required for your function to actually execute based on the data that gets passed over to us as these arguments, right? And a tip would be to set the name for the function carefully while creating it, as these functions cannot be renamed after creation. So when you choose the name of your function, we request you to kindly choose it carefully, because after creating it, once you hit the create function button, you will not be able to modify the name of this function again. All right. So once the function has been created, it will display the code structure as in this slide. So there are some things which you would need to know before you starting to write code in Java. So by default, the function and the class name will be the same and they should not be changed, right? So this here, the class name, this is same as the actual function's name, and they will always be the same one. And the execution begins with the runner method, right? And it should not be removed as well. So if you want to write a new class or a function, it needs to be written after the runner method and called from the runner method only. And a Java function's output value by default will be a collection value, as I mentioned earlier. So this output will have two keys. The output key has the value which is the output data, and the log key has some log data which the user can print using a statement. So the output key will include the following, which is the context.log, and this state is used to print logs. So we can get the values added inside the log key of a Java function's output map. The information in this context.log can be used for any debugging purposes later, if you just wanted to check what exactly has happened. And the basic io.write, this statement is used to send to Deluge the return value after execution of your cloud function. I mean, exactly to the place where in the creator workflow that this function was called from, right? So when you execute this function, it's going to be returning a value, and this basic io.write is where that's going to store that return value, and which will be pushed back into the exact workflow where this function is being called from. So that's about the basic information that we wanted to share with you all, right? So now we will see a demonstration of a sample cloud function using Java, which we have already created. So I will be showcasing that. So in this demonstration, we are going to be taking in an example of an inventory management application. So this application is a pre-built one, and we have just some basic modules into it. It's not a very complex application like an end-to-end solution. It just has a couple of forms which we wanted to include to showcase this ability. And it has the product stock form, the sales, and some business insight related information as well. So the goal for us to here is to automatically add data to the actual form where it's been used to track the inventory. But this will be done by reading the source data from a TSV file that we will be uploading to another creator form. So those who have been using Creator for a very long time, you will be aware that you will not be able to possibly have the deluge system or the Creator system to read a file or the content in a file, right, and then acquire the data from it. So this is something, a new capability that you can bring into your application. There are many instances where this can be become very helpful. Say that you have a requirement where you need to periodically update or upload data into your creator application, but you will be getting that data or having that data stored as a file, or only will be generated as a file, a CSV or a TSV file. And then in that case, you will have to upload that file manually into that respective creator form, and then you will have to choose the respective columns and map it accordingly. So if it's going to be done weekly once, or it's going to be a rare occurrence, then there's nothing wrong in doing that. But however, if it's going to be on a daily basis, and say even in a single day, if it's going to be on a multiple instances that you would need to perform this operation, then it might quite get frustration with respect to using the import option every time to have this data imported into your actual creator application. So the cloud function here can definitely act as a solution to overcome this difficulty. And it's not that we need to upload this file into the creator system in order to be able to read it. So in case you may also have it in your local system, but it's just that you need to have a publicly accessible endpoint, and so that the Java function can use that endpoint and then get access to that file and then read the content from it. But in this demonstration, we are going to be uploading the file into creator, and we are going to have the function to read the data from it. And then once the data is read, we will be uploading it into the required creator form. So let's see how we can do it. So this is the application I was referring to about. So it has the add stock form, which is going to serve as the main form where the inventory is going to be tracked. So currently we would not have any data in this form, and this is going to be the form where we have just a file upload field, and we will be uploading the required file. So I already have a sample file with me, a TSV file available, which will have, if I'm not wrong, somewhere around 270 records. So once I upload this file, we will try to have the cloud function call, and then read the data, and then have it uploaded into the add stock form here. So let's see the code which we have here. Right. So I get to the functions, and let me first show you the deluge function, which is what we will be calling on submit of the form where we will be uploading the file to. All right. So the upload inventory form, which I showcased, where the file upload field exists, we will be calling this deluge function. Let me zoom this a bit. So we will be calling this deluge function there on success, and then in turn have the respective cloud functions called within this, and then it's going to perform the operations. Right? So that every time the file gets uploaded, this function gets called, and the respective cloud function gets triggered, and that's going to read the data, and then it's going to give us the actual result in the inventory form. So here there are some steps that we are doing here. So this first thing which we're doing here, this is a Java function, one Java function. I will show you the code. And this is being used to track the number of rows that's existing in that specific file. With respect to these cloud functions, it also comes in with certain basic access restrictions as well. So regarding the time that it needs to take to complete its execution. So we will see that in detail in the points to remember section in this session at the end. But to give a perspective, there are certain access restrictions and also certain limit to the amount of data that it will be able to process at any given time. So in order to ensure is not getting lost or it's experiencing any issues while execution, we are first trying to read the number of rows in that file, all right? And depending upon the number of rows, we are trying to decide on the number of iterations that the Java function needs to be called for, right? So as I mentioned, there are certain access restrictions and execution restrictions with respect to these cloud functions. So we are carefully choosing say a safer value to be like a 4,000 rows. So in case you have a file with 20,000 rows existing, what we will do is we need to iterate the actual Java function which is going to add the number of rows to your form or the data to your form 5 times. So that gets decided here, and in order to decide on that, this particular Java function enables us to acquire the number of rows. And then for each of the iterations, we will be actually calling the main Java function. So this is just the deluge code. And please do not worry, we will also be providing you with the code that we are actually using here for the demonstration purposes as well. So along with the recording, you will also be receiving the code. So you can also refer to the same code in your own leisure time. So let me first show you the get record count function. So this function has been created using the Java language. And as I mentioned in the function builder, and also while I was explaining about the cloud functions, you will be able to bring in your own libraries. So any libraries that you would like to upload or would like to utilize in your cloud function, you can upload them here. So in order to do the upload, you can just do a right click on the library option, the folder here, and it will give you the option for upload files. And you can just choose the jar file which you would need to upload into the cloud function. All right. So here, this specific function, as I mentioned, is going to read the number of rows existing in that file that we are uploading. So in order to get access to that file, we are using API to get the file which was uploaded to Creator, and then we are reading the number of rows in that file and then returning that as a response. So this is the basic operation that we are doing in this specific function. So let me show you the code for the actual main function, which is going to perform the operation of even parsing the data and adding it into the creator form. So here, once the other function returns the number of rows, we will decide on the number of iterations that this Java function needs to take. All right. And depending upon the iterations, this specific function will be called for that many times. And once this function gets executed, so again, we will need to have another API call to trigger, acquire the actual file that got uploaded. So this is again a sample demonstration that we are doing. It's not mandatory that you need to have a file record, the number of rows to be calculated. If you know that it's going to be very less, then you don't need to perform that operation at all, right? So in case if the file is going to be big, it might be helpful in ensuring that the function doesn't hit any snacks while it executes. So here it does the same API call. It gets the file content and it reads that file content and the buffer reader as an input stream, and then it parses the data and adds it into a JSON object, right? So the columns that are existing in that file, we are providing it with the appropriate information where it needs to get the details from the column numbers, and then it adds it all into a JSON object. And as you all know that with respect to APIs in Creator, it has a cap of maximum of 200 records, right? So in order to ensure that we do not push more than 200 records at a time, we are performing this operation here to ensure that we are only processing 200 records at a time when this Java function executes. So this is again the another reason we will be deciding on the number of iteration that it needs to take up. And then once we have the JSON object created, we will be parsing the data into another map, and then we will be pushing it into the actual form where the data needs to be recorded, which is the add stock form, which is nothing but the inventory form where we want to push this data to. And that this particular section of the code takes care of that operation. And once that gets done, it's gonna go ahead and execute it. And here we also have a library uploaded to handle the JSON data that's will be processed by the API. All right. So this is the code that we have here in place, which is going to allow us to perform and achieve the goal of reading a file content and then pushing it into Zoho Creator. So here we have an options like split by, and we have given a /t. So in case if it's going to be a CSV file, you can replace this with a comma, and that's going to allow you to read that file content. All right. So I hit done. And also there's going to be some arguments when I create it. So let me show you where you can check on the arguments from. So once you get to a function, you can choose the properties. Since this was already created, let me show you the arguments that we have here. So as I mentioned, all the arguments will be of the string data type, and we have these many arguments existing in this specific function in order for us to achieve the goal. So this is going to give us the record ID of that record where it needs to fetch the file upload from. And this is going to be the value that got returned by the other Java function, the total number of rows it is. And the index is something which we take in. So when we iterate it, and when you process the first batch of 200 records, we will be passing a value again for the next iteration, which is the index value, so that it takes the index value. The starting index will be from 200, and then it will go till 399. So the next set of 200. So we use that, and the token is for the API, which is the access token. So we will use these as arguments for these functions. So let's get to the live mode of the application, and let's see how this works out. So I go to the form. So this is the file that we have here with some sample data for the form. So I click open and I hit submit. So once I hit submit, it's just going to let me know that the upload inventory got added successfully, which is the default message for this specific form, right? So let me go back to this form, and we can see here that the data that existed in the TSV file has been imported neatly into the respective columns that we have in this form. So I got a total of 72 records that existed in that file, and all of them have been imported successfully into this form here. Excuse me. So now there may be some questions coming up, like why do I have to utilize an API to push the data back into the actual creator application? And also, why do you need to have another API to acquire the file that got uploaded into the system as well? So here, as I mentioned in this demonstration, we upload the file to creator, and that is why we are using an API. But if this file is going to be on a local machine where you have it, and if it's going to be a publicly accessible one, then you can easily access it from your actual Java function. But with respect to the pushing of data to the respective form, as I was also mentioning, that the output of a Java function will always be of a collection data type. So instead of using an API call to push the data within the function itself, we just wanted to use it here. What you can do is you can construct a list of map So each row of data, you can have it as a map, and then you can have a list of maps to have each of the row that is being read, and you can have that constructed and get that pushed as a response back to the actual function, I mean the workflow where this is being called from, which is nothing but the actual forms workflow here, the upload inventory. Oops. Over here. So right now we just call the deluge function, so we can have it pushed over to that same deluge function, or if you are calling that Java function directly from here, and then you can push that collection data type response here, and then within deluge you can iterate through the elements in that collection, take one map at a time, and then you can use a simple insert into task, the deluge task, in order to insert the add record task, to be precise, to insert that record into the respective form. So even that can be done. So the only function that Java will be doing, the cloud function will be doing, is to read the data and then get you the actual data as a list of maps. So even that is a possibility of how we can utilize this in order to, if you wish, not to use APIs or hit the API limits in that process. Excuse me. So that's the short demonstration that we wanted to showcase it to you. But once again, as I repeat, you will be receiving the code. So do not worry that we did not display the code extensively in this session. So you will receive the exact code that we are using right now, and you can refer it for your own requirement, and also possibly try to implement the same in your application as well. So this function that we did see, what it basically does is it uses the V2 API to fetch and read the file that got uploaded into the creator, and also gets the number of rows, and the Java library to read the JSON data. We will also be able to upload that as a library, and then we will be calling that into the actual Java function. And then it parses the each row data into a map, and then add the parsed data to the add stock form via again an API. So that's what basically the function did. All right. So coming to the important points that we need to consider while writing a function, a cloud function using Java. So the jar files and packages can only be uploaded to the library. You will not be able to access or use a jar file from any other source. So if at all there is a requirement for you to use a jar file, you will need to upload that into the library folder that we saw while in the function builder. And only jar files can be uploaded, not any other file types. And the file upload limit of all the files put together will be 10 megabytes, that including the library file, right? And the size of your request and the response payload will have to be only 1 megabyte each. So both the request that we are sending it to that specific function, and also the response that it gives back, it needs to be 1 megabyte each. And the file size in the editor, again, can only be 1 megabyte. And you will be able to pass a maximum of 20 arguments to these Java functions, right? Only a maximum of 20 can be done, and not more than that. It will not allow you to do it. And you can call a function only 5 times in one deluge script. So that is again another reason why we have introduced the iteration, the number of iteration, and we decide that upfront before calling in the actual Java function in that code. So you will be able to refer that once we provide you the code. So only 5 times you will be able to execute a Java function within one deluge script. And in case there is a requirement for you to execute it even more than that, then you need to recursively call that specific deluge script or that deluge function again, and then you would need to handle it within your own custom coding. So that's still possible. And then you need to receive a response within 40 seconds from the start of the function call, beyond which the execution will fail. So the function, all the processes, everything will need to be getting completed, and this 40 seconds will start counting from the start of the function call itself. So these are the basic access restrictions that I was referring to about in the initial stage. So these are something currently existing, maybe in future, depending upon how the cloud functions evolve. So certain limits may be relaxed, but these are existing right now, and it is mandatory that it needs to be followed. Otherwise, the function will not execute properly, or you will not be able to even use the cloud function efficiently. All right. So some more examples where you can utilize this is, there's not going to be any demonstration as part of this, is just an idea. So watermark generation for images. So you know for sure that when you upload an image into Creator, you will not be able to do much operations on that image that got uploaded. But right now you do have the artificial intelligence capabilities introduced into Creator, which can analyze the images and give you the objects or the items that's present in an image. So those kind of abilities are being brought in. But however, watermarking an image, which is nothing but imprinting a logo or a custom text on an image, is not possible, right? And there is no default functionality on Creator that will be able to do that operation as well. So this cloud functions using Java especially can be used to also perform such an operation. So there are a lot of readily available Java solutions available to even watermark an image automatically, right? And we can use such things, and then we will be able to call that specific Java function that we will be creating, having it created within that specific application on success of a specific form. And then it'll acquire the photo that got uploaded, and then it'll watermark it and it'll upload it back into Creator. All right. So here again, you might have to utilize the APIs in order to get the photo, upload it back into that same Creator form. So this is a sample. So on the left, we have a raw image, and on the right, we have an image that got watermarked. So this is something that's possible by utilizing the Java Cloud Functions. This is a sample report that we got long back. So the raw images that got uploaded to that form is in one column, and the processed image, which got processed by the Java function, will be uploaded into that same respective record with the watermarking done. All right. So this is the other example or the other scenarios where you can utilize this. There are several other advantages of using the similar watermarking as well. So if you have an application that tracks delivery, so you can ensure that your delivery associate clicks a picture of the package being delivered at the doorstep of the specific client or the recipient. And then you can choose to watermark the timestamp value into that image, so that it can also serve as a proof of time of delivery for that specific package. So that is another instance where you can also use this watermarking effectively and at the way smartly, in order to act as a proof of ownership or the proof of delivery for that specific recipient as well, right? So with that, we come to an end of this webinar, and we get into the questions section. So if you have any questions on this session, feel free to post them on the questions panel. So I see a lot of questions have been posted already, and our co-trainers have been addressing them. All right, so I do have a question from Paul. However, though it's not related to this specific webinar, how can we use JavaScript in Zoho Creator? All right, Paul, you can utilize JavaScript in Zoho Creator, and it's been supported as widgets in Zoho Creator, which you will be able to utilize in the page component of Creator. So there, by creating a widget, you can use your own HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code, and then you will be able to bring that functionality of JavaScript into Creator through widgets. There was a separate webinar on that earlier, a couple of weeks back. I will try to paste the necessary article for you And also we will see if we can email you the link for the actual webinar that we hosted with respect to the widgets. So again, the limits that we have been mentioning, the operational limits, as I was saying. So this is a new ability that we have introduced in Zoho Creator. So that is the reason why, to start off with, we have carefully chosen these access restrictions. So in future, as I was mentioning, as and when these cloud functions evolve and scale up, we will definitely be looking into possibilities of how we can relax such restrictions, and then so that you can even more execute these functions freely without any such access restrictions. But since this has been introduced newly, currently these have been imposed. So in future, you may expect something to be in the positive sense. So if you have any questions for us, feel free to post them in the questions panel and we will address them one by one. And also with respect to these functions, we do have dedicated articles existing and created for the functions as well, right? So for the Java functions, you will see a section on the left as handouts. So there you will find two links. One would be for the Java functions and the other one would be for the Node.js functions. So the concepts that I've explained and the points to remember that I mentioned can also be referred to in that article, and that's a completely detailed article that will provide you with all the information you need to know involved to create these cloud functions using Java and Node.js. So there are separate articles for each of the new languages that we are bringing into the cloud functions. So please access them from the handout section, and then you can bookmark that even so that you can even use it or refer it at a later time. So the JavaScript capabilities that we have utilized, I have posted the link. Uh, that's the webinar session we hosted on JavaScript. So you will be able to access that from that link posted, and you can easily learn how JavaScript can be brought in to Zoho Creator as widgets in Zoho pages. So the Node.js is again based on Java, so there will not be much difference with respect to how you would be approaching the creation of a function. But certain terminologies it's required that requires to know. So that's why we have a separate article for that. I have a question posted on the chat panel by Gabriel. Where to read to get a basic knowledge of Java, JavaScript, and Node.js? If you mean within Zoho Creator, then yeah, we have posted the respective links in the handout section. But if you are asking in the general sense of the languages on the overall, in that case, we would suggest you to consider using any online tutorials with respect to learning that. There are lots of them. There is no dedicated one that we can suggest. So there are a lot of tutorials or websites existing, especially for Java alone for that matter. So just a simple Google search will definitely land you on the appropriate tutorial, free tutorials to be precise. So you can refer them to learn more about these languages. But if you're referring to know more about that within Zoho Creator, then we have posted the respective. So we had a question from Dash regarding the arguments, regarding the functions accepting only string values. So these functions, if you have utilized a deluge function, you would be aware how an argument works exactly. So when you create an argument, then you will be declaring the data type of that argument also. But in case if your actual data which requires to be passed to that argument for that function is of a different data type, then you need to perform data conversion. So when you are passing values to these arguments which are only accepting string values for these cloud functions, you need to modify the data as a string data type by using the toString built-in function that's available in Deluge. So I'm sure you would have already utilized that. So you need to perform the data conversion, and if you do not, then there would be an execution error. So all the arguments that you would need to pass to these functions will only need to be of string data type. So if in case the data type is going to be of a different type, then you need to perform the conversion by using the built-in function .toString to convert that into a string data type and then pass it to the function as an argument. All right, so I do not see any further questions being posted for us. So I guess once again, I would like to thank you all for your participation in this webinar with respect to the cloud function. So in future, we will host more webinars as part of Creator Community Learning Series, so that we will try to ensure that we are bringing the knowledge to you. So there will be an upcoming session as well as part of these community learning. And the next session is on how you can work with the Creators V2 API. And that is being hosted on the November 16th, the same time as today's, 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So feel free to register on the link that you are right now seeing on screen for that session and make the most out of the V2 API. And those who have not utilized Creator till date and are extremely new, feel free to try out Creator for free. So you can register for a free edition and then try Creator out. And if you have any questions with respect to any aspect of Zoho Creator or any section, and even when you're trying out these cloud functions on your own, and if you are experiencing any issues with how, or you do not know how to approach a specific requirement by using these cloud functions, feel free to contact our support team by writing to them at support@zohocreator.com, and we will provide you with the necessary assistance so that you can proceed with creating your own cloud functions. And in case you are new to Zoho Creator and if you would like to try out to see if that works for any of your business requirement, feel free to contact our pre-sales team at pre-sales@zohocreator.com, and they'll be more than happy to guide you in your onboarding you to Zoho Creator. So it's been again a wonderful experience in hosting this session for you all. Thank you all and have a great day.